in the sports world.
Cashed after years of vehement denials, Lance Armstrong isn't conceding defeat, but he is unwilling to keep up a public fight. Major announcement coming down last night after Lance gave up his fight against the U.S. anti-doping agency. So USADA announced today it has stripped him of its 7 Tour de France titles, his Olympic medal, and any earnings, and giving him a lifetime cycling ban. Armstrong maintains he's innocent. USADA alleges Armstrong used banned substances dating back to 1996. Armstrong says USADA doesn't have the authority to vacate his titles and is tired of fighting to clear his name. Here's Armstrong's exact statement. This investigation has not been about learning the truth or cleaning up cycling, but about punishing me at all costs. The bottom line is I played by the rules that were put in place by the UCI, WADA, and USADA when I raced. Today, I turn the page. Here is the USADA CEO on the decision to strip Armstrong of his 7 Tour de France titles. He was a guest with Ron Rosillo and Jonathan Coachman on the Scott Van Pelt Show.
The U.S. Postal Service pro cycling team, carried out one of the most professionalized and sophisticated performance-enhancing drug programs, all aimed to win. And he chose not to contest that evidence through the established legal process, and so under the rules that automatically goes into place. If we're going to want to give clean athletes the opportunity to believe that they can win without having to use drugs, we have to have the ability to bring cases based on reliable evidence, have a fair process that athletes can challenge that evidence. Unfortunately, drug testing alone doesn't stop sophisticated and professional cheaters.
Well, here is the timeline of this investigation. In October of 1996, Armstrong was diagnosed with testicular cancer, but by 1999, he had returned to cycling, winning the first of his 7 straight Tour de France titles. He retired following his 7th in 2005, but returned with a 3rd-place run in 2009. Armstrong was accused of doping by Floyd Landis in 2010 and by former teammate Tyler Hamilton in 2011. In June, the U.S. anti-doping agency brought charges of doping against Armstrong. And yesterday, the American city won't fight the USADA charges. And today, the International Cycling Union said it wants a full explanation from USADA on why Armstrong should relinquish titles he won from 1999 through 2005. Joining us now on SportsCenter is Peter Flax, the editor-in-chief of Bicycling Magazine, who's covered this sport for well over a decade and Lance Armstrong's entire cycling career. Peter, your cover story is on Lance's verdict. What does it say about Armstrong to end his fight against doping allegations now?
Well, it's just an incredible moment. I've never seen Lance back down before, whether he was trying to win the Tour or fighting cancer or combating the people making accusations. He always just had a win-at-all-cost attitude, and suddenly last night that changed, and he said, I give up. It was just a stunning moment.
What do you think is his biggest reason for giving up?
I think, Lance has always been a really smart tactician, and I think he's picking the least worst option available to him. He's still in a position where he can go to his followers and the supporters of his foundation and say, look, I'm innocent, I've been persecuted, this process was biased against me from the beginning, and he'll find friendly ears to that, and that's better than having an arbitration hearing where all of his former teammates start detailing activities that they saw and participated in.
Well, it's one thing for the United States Anti-Doping Agency to make a stand. Do they actually have the authority to strip Armstrong of his Tour de France titles?
Well, they definitely have the authority to render a decisive decision about somebody's status in relating to doping. Whether they'll be able to successfully take away his Tour de France titles will depend a lot on the reaction of the professional cycling organization and the owners of the Tour de France. And, I think today's day one of an international dispute about how that plays out. I think it'll take weeks to sort that out.
Peter, you covered Lance Armstrong like very few else and know him as well as anybody. How do you personally view him and his legacy?
Well, he's still the greatest bike racer that I ever saw. I think he'll be remembered as the best racer of his generation. But the fact now that a lot of people are coming to realize that, like so many of the competitors he was racing against, he used performance-enhancing drugs and doped, will cause people to feel sad about it and try and put it into perspective. It's really hard today, as his legacy is being shaped, to figure out how it'll feel in 5 or 10 years.
Sounds like a bittersweet feeling for many that in the sport and around it. Peter Flax, the editor-in-chief of Bicycling Magazine, I appreciate your insight here on SportsCenter.
Good to be here.